The number one thing that I would like people to know is that 95% of the kids that came through our center in 2024 knew their offender.
Welcome to the DMF podcast, where you will find great conversations with interesting people who have been called to serve. We'll meet impactful charities, dive deep into pressing health topics, and learn from servant leaders who are working to see, be, and spread light. At the end of each episode, we hope you're inspired to realize that you have your own unlimited potential to change the world for the better. Join us as we work to create a region of the healthiest, most purpose-driven people on the planet. Welcome back to the DMF podcast. I'm your host, Whitney Isaacson. Thanks for joining me in another conversation as we highlight a charity that is doing important work in our community. Without children's advocacy centers, kids often have to relive and tell their stories of abuse between 8 to 10 times. Thanks to Sarah Matthews and the team at the Red River Children's Advocacy Center, they only need to do it once. Sarah oversees a team that's doing some of the most important work in our community, providing a safe and welcoming environment for kids that are going through the most traumatic experiences of their young lives. To highlight National Child Abuse Prevention Month, we invited her in to learn more about the center's work and how caring adults can learn to spot the signs of child sexual abuse. Whether you're looking to learn more about the center or just joining us for the first time, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So let's get into it. All right, Sarah, welcome to the DMF podcast. We are super excited to be sitting down with you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's always fun to just get people into our podcast studio, sit down, have some encouraging conversations. So you are a rock star in our community. So thank you for everything that you do of just serving the children in need across our region. So again, just thank you and welcome to the DMF podcast.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that.
Of course. Well, I wanted to ask you, my favorite and first question always is just, what are you most passionate about in your role?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most passionate about is when staff succeed at our work that we do. As a manager for a long time in my career, I have really, I guess, selfishly benefited from, or, got that self-fulfillment from staff doing something that they love or having a success story that they have encountered. So specifically with the Red River Children's Advocacy Center, we see a lot of kids that come in a very low point in their life, and they have to say things that are very difficult to say, and it takes a really long time to even build rapport with them to get to that point. And some of my favorite stories currently are those kiddos coming through, going through the 6-month mental health program, graduating, and then now we're starting to hear some of those stories where they've done all of that. Now they're in college, or they've graduated high school, and now they want to be helpers in the community. Then from the staff's perspective, them saying, I did that. I helped with that. I, helped them get through that, got them to a point where they were comfortable with themselves and comfortable talking about what happened to them and just comfortable in their own skin again, and to be able to go back out into the community and do great things.
Totally. Those fruits of the labors coming in, and you get those full circle moments. Yeah, totally fulfilling.
Yeah, definitely fulfilling.
Yes. And I mean, you guys do such gut-wrenching work a lot of the times, just because you're seeing into some of the darkest moments of a child's life. And so that's got to be very difficult, but I can imagine that fruit of the labor coming together with those full circle moments are just very impactful for your staff. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
So for anyone listening that just wants like a high level rundown of what does the Red River Children Advocacy Center do, can you share a little bit about just what's your mission, who do you serve, and how did you guys get started?
Yeah. So our mission is to facilitate healing and justice for victims of sexual, physical abuse, neglect, exploitation, and to engage the community to protect and support children. And that's a really large mouthful of things, and there are a lot of things that we do to fulfill that mission. And one of them being our primary first step for a child and family getting to us is a referral from law enforcement or social services for a case that they're actively working on for an investigation. And so they refer a child to come to our center where they can tell their story or their experience of abuse in a comforting environment with a neutral party, someone who will listen to them. On average, a child will tell their story or have to tell their story without a CAC model 8 to 10 times, possibly more, because there's so many people that work on a case that need to know what happened in detail. And that can be re-traumatizing to a child. And so the forensic interview is that first step to eliminate that duplication of storytelling or experience sharing, and hopefully only having the child to say it one time. We say one time, give or take, because if a child is 12 years old or older and the trial does go through to a jury trial, they may have to testify at that time, depending on the circumstances. However, we bring the team to them at our center. So they're referred, they come into a very friendly environment. They sit down in our family room with whoever brought them, who's a non-offending caregiver. Could be grandma, could be mom, could be dad. And they watch Netflix for a little while. They can color, they can do puzzles and Play-Doh and all the things. And so once they're comfortable in that room, our forensic interviewer, who is a highly trained professional, specifically in forensic interviewing, comes in and says, hey, this is who I am. Let's go check out the room that we're going to be talking in today. And then they go there. They sit across from each other. It has video cameras in there, built into the walls and ceiling, microphone built into the walls, very discreet in that manner, so you don't have a camera straight in front of your face. They're told that they're recorded. They're showed the cameras. They're showed the microphone in the wall. They're explained that there's a team on the other side in another room watching on a closed circuit television the interview at the same time, but to eliminate them having to see so many faces and whatnot and be distracted, they only have to talk to that one person. And so our forensic interviewer really does a wonderful job. Well, there's multiple of them. They do a wonderful job feeling out the case first. So we know nothing before the child comes. We know nothing about their case. We're an unbiased party. We are just there to see what they share with us and get the facts for the investigation. And in doing so, we have to do a couple things first, which is make sure the child, one, is understandable. We can see kids from age 3 to 18. Sometimes we see adults who are older than 18, if they are vulnerable adults, have a disability, or law enforcement just thinks that it'd be a best environment for them to share. And the main thing that they start with is, again, that room, kind of tour of that room, and then they go right into, does this child have the skill to participate effectively in this forensic interview? And so they'll ask questions about truths and lies, and they'll talk about if you don't know something, what would you say? Let's practice. And they practice these skills for about 15 or 20 minutes before the interview even occurs. And the interviewer at that time then says, okay, we can go ahead and do the interview, or no, I'm not doing an interview with this child because there's not a possibility to do this in a legally sound, unbiased, truthful way. So they really test that out beforehand. A lot of people ask that question on how do you know a kid's not lying, or how do you know if they're a good child and they're not just making stuff up? That process, first and foremost. And then secondary to that process, children don't lie about the details of things that a child should never have to experience unless they've experienced that. And an example would be touch, feel, taste. They should never have had that experience in those sensory ways. And when they describe it, you know that it had happened. And so that is why how we can prove or sort of debunk that a child is lying or, fabricating truth or whatever the case is. And so that is just a really interesting, detailed process. So once the interview is done, then a child will exit the room. The team will get together with the primary caregiver who's brought them that day and the forensic interviewer and the family advocate who's been talking to the non-offending caregiver, giving them support throughout this entire process. And they meet and they do a safety plan. And so it could be law enforcement, social services, prosecution. It could be whoever's doing the case that day. It could be FBI, CBI. It could be multiple variations of team members.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what they do is they make sure that they talk about the safety precautions of when the child leaves our center. What does it look like when the child leaves? Do they go back to their home? Do they go back to grandma's house instead? Do they need a sharps box because they screened at their screener after their interview with the advocate that they were, experiencing suicidal thoughts? Those types of things. Do they need a mental health referral? Do they need a medical referral from the Sanford Care Clinic who we partner with? Or is there evidence collection that needs to be completed? So a lot of things happen at that forensic interview to get that case started and stop the abuse for the child. Once all of those recommendations are given, the caregiver is given the option to then carry those things out or have the child participate in those things. So what could happen, like I said, is a medical examination. It's completely voluntary, and the child can go and just make sure that everything's okay afterwards and make sure that their body is healthy and they know that their body is healthy. They may get a mental health referral, which we have on site. So we have a mental health clinic that treats kids for trauma. And we have Dr. Schimmelfedig on staff where she has a team of professionals who do the mental health assessments to see what type of treatment plan and what type of things that the child may need for that period of time. Usually it's a 6-month program, like I said. Would they benefit from our program? Would they benefit elsewhere? Do we have a waiting list? And so on. If we have a waiting list, we always refer out to someone who has a shorter waiting list if they can do that specific treatment. Most times, children will get the trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy treatment, which is a known treatment around from other therapists in our area. However, there are cases where that treatment is not the plan, and we are the only person in our region or company in our region that provides that specific trauma treatment. It's a lot of acronyms, and I'll spare the group with the acronyms. But yeah, they are the only ones in our region that can do that type of therapy for those kids. And so then we make sure to keep those kids in-house at our clinic and prioritize those cases as best as we can. Obviously, knowing capacity could be an issue at any time. And the mental health is a tough field right now to fill as much as we need. So
no, this is a great overview of the process for a child, but then also all the services and resources and partnerships that you guys have to walk alongside them. So I have a few questions. How many kids are you guys serving on a week, annually? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so in 2024, we saw 1,000 individuals, and that could be that count is the child who comes in for a forensic interview, their siblings who may have entered with them during the forensic interview with the family in the family room, the adults or caregivers that are also getting those advocacy services, and those are wraparound advocacy services. And so those go on for weeks, sometimes months afterwards with the caregiver to help them navigate this situation and how to help the child through this and what to say and what resources to get in our community. And then we did 408 interviews for law enforcement and social services in 2024.
Okay.
So that's quite a lot of interviews.
It's a big impact,
doing.
yeah.
And, there's 365 days in the year, and we did 408 interviews. And so multiple a day. Some weeks it's slow, and some weeks it is very crazy where we have 12 a week. And so it really does range. But when I did punch the numbers for a couple grants that we have to write, it averaged about 5 to 6 a week.
Okay. Wow. So I'm just thinking then with the process of how you guys are walking alongside these kids, you're serving over 1,000 a year, it's crazy numbers. So how, after you, if they're referred to mental health counseling, they're referred out to this other service, they do a medical examination, is it by different cases, how long the duration is that you're walking alongside them, or at what point are you done and they go back to the caregiver? What's that point look like in the process?
So each case is individualized. So for the forensic interview, we don't have the child there after that. The social service or case manager, it's their responsibility at that point to either remove the child from the home. Maybe they've disclosed something that's also happening in the home that's not acceptable, and they may need to remove them. And that's why law enforcement and social services have to be at every interview, is because there are some legalities that we need them to complete, and we don't do those types of services. We just aid in that evidence finding. And so typically a child is there at our center for their first time between an hour to 2 hours, sometimes 3 if they have a lot of things to say. Then their second encounter with us could be at that mental health clinic where they would be in our care for 6 months, 1 time a week. The advocacy is ongoing with that non-offending caregiver. Again, very individualized. Some caregivers will come to us and say, nope, I'm really well set up. I have a really big support network. I feel like I can navigate this. And we still provide them with the resources to call us back, to text us, to visit, whatever it is that is their primary form of communication. And oftentimes they do call back later and say, I thought we had this. We have a network of people. I thought they knew how to help me. They don't know how to help me. I don't know how to help myself. Can you help us? What do we say? How do we navigate this? And how do I support my child? And so our advocate then continues to provide that until the parent or caregiver is feeling more comfortable and confident, and things have maybe cooled down or calmed down. The child has been at therapy for a little while and has learned some coping skills. And so could be 6 months, could be 3 weeks. We will never turn someone away just because of a timeline. When we see cases close, or typically when people graduate from our mental health program, or when a case has been completely closed, where that's meaning we've gotten the mental health service referrals and they're going regularly. We've checked in with the team through these meetings that we call multidisciplinary team meetings every month. So we have a CAS MDT meeting and a Clay MDT meeting and a Spirit Lake MDT meeting 1 time a month. And all our staff and our partners bring the cases together. They convene together on all of the cases, make sure that all of those things are happening. Is a child going to therapy? Is there a barrier to getting them to therapy? Do they need a car? Do they need gas cards? Do they need groceries? Do they need money for food? What other supports that the entire team can get them? And then talking about prosecution. Has the case been prosecuted? Is it going to be prosecuted? And then just helping them navigate those things as well. Or does the child need some type of court training or prep? Oh. And we do have models of the courtroom at our building made out of these wood displays. They're very cool. And our therapists will walk through with children who are likely to have to testify or possibly walk into a courtroom to desensitize them, to give a little bit of information on what it looks like before they were to enter, and then what types of things, that coping skills and other skills they can use when they are there. And then usually they take that time off. Our therapist takes that time off from scheduling other appointments, and they're kind of on call, on standby, so that the child can call right away afterwards, or whatever that child feels like they need.
Remember that Giving Hearts Day is a year-round effort. At the end of the episode, we'd invite you to head to givingheartsday.org to give, find a volunteer opportunity, or donate goods to this charity or one of the other 600 plus important causes throughout our region. And don't forget to mark your calendars for Giving Hearts Day 2026, the region's largest 24-hour give-a-thon. Giving Hearts Day 2026 will be held on Thursday, February 12th. See you then. That's awesome. Wow, such a good overview of the inside of what you guys are doing, your day-to-day, and all the programs. I'm learning so much, so I love it. So for anyone listening, can you give us just a quick overview of what are different types of child abuse? How can we identify them? And are there some do's and don'ts of how to approach it, what to say, how to navigate that in case anyone listening wants to learn more, or they might have a situation in mind that they're already thinking of?
Yes, there are lots of different forms of abuse. As we see, most of our cases, over 65% of our cases are sexual abuse. The number one thing that I would like people to know is that 95% of the kids that came through our center in 2024 knew their offender in some capacity. So whether it was their parent, their siblings, a friend, a neighbor, a principal, whoever can get close to that child or has developed a relationship with that child or has access to that child, that's likely. So it can be anyone. I think that's the thing that, not to scare everyone, and not trust anyone in your family or outside of your family, but just knowing that statistic is key. Mm-hmm. It can be anyone. It can happen to anybody. Abuse does not discriminate. Mm-hmm. It can be the wealthiest of the wealthy and the most vulnerable people, and everything in between. So that's number one. The physical abuse cases are not as prominent as our sexual abuse cases, but it's happening. Neglect, exploitation. We have a lot of digital types of crimes happening where our partners are involving us in human trafficking. We have quite a few cases of human trafficking that come through kidnapping. A family member has possibly kidnapped a child several times and continuously, follows them around from state to state trying to do it again. So many other things. And so, like I said, the main thing is it can happen to anybody. It could be anybody. And don't always think that the person who's trying to help you out, who's taking your kid to soccer for you just because, the neighbor who's constantly hanging out with your kiddo or buying them gifts, that's usually not normal. Yep. Without the adult being present or involved in some capacity, calling a child, texting a child, without the parent's knowledge for any reason that is other than, what they absolutely need to know for whatever reason. Maybe they're picking them up or whatnot, but some of those things. And then clubs or sports, things like that. Our community actually does a really great job with training coaches and volunteers and parents who have their children in sporting events. So I'm actually very happy with those processes that have been put into place recently. But so that training is important to make sure that you pay attention to, because what they are training in those trainings is exactly what you need to be looking out for.
How to prevent it.
Yep, how to prevent it. Making sure that they limit one-on-one times with athletes or students or kids, that they have a protocol for that there is a protocol for reporting, for reporting abuse. And I'm just making sure that there's those step-by-step processes. Again, limiting the one-on-one times with anyone, making sure that there's always somebody around and knows where they are and who they're with. And then some of the other things, what were some of the other things that you were saying?
Yeah, just how to identify it if there's signs and symptoms that a child is maybe showing, or is there things that you can do like trainings to, prevent it? You kind of touched on that, but otherwise, is there do's and don'ts that if you are identifying it, how do you go about approaching it? To who?
Yeah, great question. So if you suspect someone is, trying to get close to your child, we call that grooming, or trying to get close to you to get close to your child, because sometimes that is also the first step where they, target the adults, make the adult become comfortable with them and, kind of think that they're doing good things for the family or helping them out. And then that's how they gain access to the child or to the environment or the home or the sport activity, whatever it is. So if you are feeling that way, usually your gut instinct is correct. Limiting that time with that person, reeling back pretty heavily, never allowing them to, at that point, be alone with your child or out of your sight. And then in those situations, I would say, approaching that individual and saying, I no longer want you to be with my child, whatnot. If that is suspected, law enforcement can get involved and you can report those types of things. If you suspect somebody is trying to gain access to a child, you should always report that. It may feel uncomfortable and you may not know really if that's what the person is doing, but with multiple attempts and multiple of those things that I just mentioned, you're likely going to be correct. And if it's not, who cares?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who cares if you reported it and it was nothing? Because if you didn't report it and it was something, that's the problem.
Totally.
So that's a big one. I think if you see a red flag in that sense, or you feel weird about something, is just making sure to report it regardless. And it's okay to report something that you are unfamiliar with or just suspect. Law enforcement will do their job, so will social services, and they'll figure it out for you and they'll check in on that for you. There are also cases where, you may see something in public. You may see a teenager or a child, being touched inappropriately in public or at a store or whatnot. You want to notify the store right away so that they can take the precautions and call law enforcement or do whatever is needed to help in those situations. If you're at a sporting event or your child's involved in sports, and let's just say they're one of the coaches is over the age of 18, they're an adult, and they're texting or calling the child who's on the sports team regularly, you can definitely report that to law enforcement, because again, like I mentioned, an adult should not be contacting a child. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of rules around that in some of those trainings I was mentioning that our community does such a great job on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We also do provide prevention training in partnership with Dakota Medical Foundation called Stand to Protect. And so we offer that free of charge to any organizations, any adults, any groups of adults. Or I would even just say older teenagers, 16 to 18. It is a really great training on preventing child sexual abuse. And it gives you 10 red flag reasons or things to be looking out for, some of which we've already mentioned today. Great. So lots of things going on with you guys. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk about if there's anything fun coming up with the Red River Children's Advocacy Center that you want to plug or just share about. Yeah. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And some of the things that we like to do is get the community involved in ways where the family can get together and learn about being safe and learn ways to interact with each other that are healthy, because we want children to be able to be as comfortable with their caregivers and their family members as possible, so that they are those people who they will go to if something is not quite right or they need help. And so we just recently had a Craft and Connect activity where we brought people into our center and did the Stand to Protect training for the adults who attended, and then the children that were attending did an arts and crafts activity. And then after the Stand to Protect training, they got together and did a meaningful activity with a coping type skill or craft that was tangible and reusable, right, for purposes of talking to your children about abuse and keeping safe. And so they got together and did that. And the next one that we have for CAP month is what we call it, is on April 24th at 5:30 p.m. at the Fargo Dome. We're hosting a free training to help adults learn more about the digital crimes that may happen, or some of the things that they need to know about the digital world that we have going on, and all those risks. And so we have a very great free training. It's 1 hour again at the Fargo Dome. And we can host about 140 people there. And so it could be a big crowd. Wonderful, and it could be a great way to educate a lot of people all at one time.
And people can sign up by going to your website or finding information?
Yeah, actually, it's just on our Facebook page right now. And I think on LinkedIn as well. It's just an event. Right now, I'll have to figure not exactly sure what the name of it is. Connected and Protected.
Yeah, we can find that too and share it. So that'd be great.
Yeah, Connected and Protected is what you should search, and you'll be able to find the event for that.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for just sharing so much insight and sharing your heart and your passion for Red River Children's Advocacy Center, and just helping us learn a little bit more about what you guys do and the importance of your work, and as you're partnering with these kids, walking along them through their journey of healing from abuse. So important. And I wanted to ask one last question, is just how can people get involved for anyone listening?
Yeah, so we have multiple events throughout the year where people can volunteer or host fundraisers for items and things. So every child gets a blanket and a book and a toy or something to take home with them after their forensic interview. A lot of kids will come to us and they don't have something that's ever been theirs before. And we want to make that experience comforting and leave them with something that they can call their own and that they can have and hold, and no one else can have that. And so we do ask for blanket donations, tie blankets, quilts, those types of things. We have a lot of community that actually does participate in that for us already. Markers, coloring books, those types of fundraisers, hygiene products, because some people will come to us and they're running away from a situation, or they're living in a hotel and the little tiny hotel shampoo bottles just are not cutting it. Those types of things. And then we participate in Giving Hearts Day with Dakota Medical Foundation. We have volunteer opportunities for that, to call people before and after, thanking them, as well as we have our gala in October, which is coming up October 24th. I believe. Yep, that's a Friday. And we have volunteers that can sign up to help us with the event, can help us planning the event, finding items for the silent auction, live auction. We also have volunteer opportunities just throughout the year to help us clean our facility. We don't have someone who cleans our facility on a regular basis. And so just making sure that it's top-notch, ceiling to floor, clean with all the dusting and things like that as well. And then hosting an event for us, like actually Kappa Delta is one of our best volunteer groups, and they've been one of the longest groups that has volunteered for us, and they host a Shamrock Week at NDSU, and they actually raise several thousands of dollars for us, doing various fun activities around campus. And so just things like that are really impactful for us as well.
Wow. All right. Well, so many ways to get involved. And of course, we look forward to just always being partners with you guys in your mission and building that long-lasting relationship with you guys. So thank you again so much for sitting down on our podcast. And I can't wait to see what you guys got going on with all your events coming up and all the fun plans here coming up. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you.
Wow, it is hard to think about any child going through a traumatic abuse in their life. As Sarah mentioned, in 2024, they served 1,000 individuals with 408 interviews for law enforcement and social services. That's a lot of interviews when there's only 365 days in a year. There are multiple children each day going through the darkest experiences, and they need support and resources in our communities. It's encouraging to know that places like the Red River Children's Advocacy Center exist to walk along a child through their journey and provide that safe and nurturing place for them to tell their story and start their healing. I loved how Sarah shared her passion behind why she does what she does. They see a lot of kids come in at the low points in their lives, but when those kids receive that mental health support from the center, they come out moving on and doing better things and wanting to be helpers in the community. The staff then feels like they succeed because they were a part of that life transformation. There are beautiful stories coming out of the Red River Children's Advocacy Center, so don't forget to check them out and find them at rrcac.org. All right, folks, that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next time on the DMF podcast. And remember, we are called to serve.